Welcome to episode 77 of Shane Talks. Going to be doing a little bit different than our normal routine this month. We are switching up to a 4-4-2 formation. We are going to be doing no questions about what you watched recently, no questions about what you're excited about, no Mount Rushmore this month. What we are talking about is one show. One show with four different guests where we're going to ask some questions about the greatest show recently that's been put on television, and that is Ted Lasso. Ever since Ted Lasso finished up, Jason and I have been talking about wanting to do a Ted Lasso specific episode, and we're finally making that happen this month. So nothing like any other episode we've ever done. We're switching it up again for this episode. And as always, I am joined by the greatest co-host in the history of podcasting, Jason L. Mayer. I love the shirt. Awesome. And our first of four guests, guest number one, subbing in at the beginning of the match, we have Chris Meek. What's up, buddy? How you doing, sir?
Hey, everybody. I'm great.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Just real quick, off Ted Lasso topic. I've loved spending time with you this last 3 months at almost every Indy 11 match, dude. It's been great seeing you a lot more this season. I don't know why we didn't run into each other previous seasons, but this season's been a lot of fun, literally hanging out almost every match.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been nice seeing you. It's been fun, even though the boys aren't playing great. It's good. The atmosphere at Carroll Stadium's awesome, and I'm really looking forward to this season, getting through the end of this season, next season, and then moving into the stadium in 25. So that'll be a very exciting year.
It's really exciting because the women are kind of like the driving force that have gotten us into that stadium, because they've joined the women's professional league and they have to have a stadium by 2025. So it was kind of nice that all kind of played out together at the same time. All right.
Did they finally agree to everything for the city of Indianapolis for them to have it in 2025?
As far as I know.
So that was the move forward plan. So they broke ground in May, and then they'll start 2025 at Carroll Stadium, and the stadium is supposed to be finished by August. So they'll be able to finish their season right in time to end that year. So
it should be pretty awesome. Exciting. Well, let's get into Ted Lasso. Jason, why don't you start us off with the first question?
Ted Lasso question number one is: there are a lot of memorable quotes and lines from the series. Which one stands out the most to you?
So for me, it's not a traditional quote that you see written on a wall somewhere. You even see in the litany of quotes, and actually it's from season 2, episode 1, Goodbye Earl, and it's actually Beard quoting Ted from a previous moment in their life. So the quote itself is, "All people are different people." And what brings about this quote, Beard is recalling a story with Ted where Ted made mention of that to him when he was talking to Ted about just being dumped by a cruise ship dancer. So he asks, "Do you remember what you told me what you said to me when I got dumped by the cruise ship dancer?" Ted says, "Was it, can I have your tap shoes?" And Beard says, "No, it was all people are different people." And Ted's like, "Wow, that was really good." So I just, thinking and reflecting on what that means in general of really everyone's living different experiences. Everyone, no matter how well you know someone, they're still a different person from you. They're going through different things, take things differently, and have different experiences. I think for me, it's not the flashy things that you see everywhere, but it's something that really hit home in that moment for me and throughout the series as a whole.
That's really awesome. That's not one that, like you said, would normally come to my mind that I would expect somebody to pick. So that's really cool. I like the fact that you found something in the show that was smaller than "be a goldfish" or any of the other major quotes that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough topic for sure. And so
absolutely.
it's there's a lot to choose from, and I have a very close second that we'll talk about here in a little bit, I'm sure. Okay. But I thought that it was a nice felt good about the show overall when you think about everybody's different lives and the glimpses that you see into these athletes' lives.
Hit it right now. What's the second one?
So the second one, which ties to one of the most memorable moments from the show, but gotcha. It's actually from Ted's mom. So nice. in the Mom City episode, she talks to Ted about life and being a parent. So as a parent, this spoke
Ah,
specifically to me, and being a football parent or a soccer parent, um, very specifically. But she says that's the thing about being a parent. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win, but most of the time you just tie, and that's all that we can do is keep playing. And I love the reference, like being a parent, that's how it is. You win a lot of the times, you lose a lot of the times, but most of the time you're playing for the tie. And when you think about the game of football, the game of soccer, that's it. Like there's a lot of wins, there's a lot of losses, but there's a lot of ties in there too. And it's just a really cool um like link to parenting and that beautiful game itself. And I love that quote as
absolutely.
well.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. So the second question that we got for the Ted Lasso episode is obviously there's a lot of memorable scenes. Thinking I know where your memorable scene is going to be going, but of
Yeah.
all of the memorable scenes in the show, what's the one that sticks out to you the most?
Yeah, so it's the scene that directly precedes that quote, or that quote's even part of that. But
Hmm.
for me, it's the thank you, F you, um, uh, really back and forth that Ted has with his mom. So I think um, it's the moment that we get to see Ted the most vulnerable throughout the entire series, and where we finally get to see Ted talk about what's going on with him, why he is in the background, the Ted that we don't always get to see. Some of the things that we may not have got to see him talk about with Dr. Sharon. Like we got to see him talk about his dad, but you never really get to hear him talk about his mom and growing up. Um, and what I love about this scene specifically, and really the whole Mom City episode with his interaction with his mom, is if you go back to when he met Rebecca's mom um, in season 1, and she comes to Richmond, he has the quote, I love meeting people's mothers. It's like reading the instruction manual of why they're so nuts. And like you get to literally see that play out. Like you get to see her for definitely the influence that she had on Ted because of who he is, but she's also a driving force as to why Ted's having panic attacks and why he is the way that he is in that sense. The other piece of that, which kind of what leads up to the parenting aspect of that, is Ted's true fear about his relationship with his son, and not that he's not a great father, but he's so scared of getting close to his son because he knows his son's going to leave because we get old. And like his just spilling that out and talking to her about that in the moment's great, because like he doesn't know what being a father is like beyond a 16-year-old boy. Like he hasn't lived that experience because he didn't have that. So I just think that whole scene to me is I mean, there's so many great scenes, but like that just sticks out to me as one that like is the epitome of what Ted Lasso is as a show. And I felt like a perfect wrap to like this is where we're going with this, and this is how we're going to end Ted's story from here forward. So
Absolutely, man. And that
that's it
Mom
for me.
City episode is one of the weird ones because, as somebody who considers myself a writer, when I watch an episode like that, I think I know where it's going. I think that I know what they're doing. His mom's acting a specific way because she's going to, at the end of the episode, drop a bombshell on him. She's going to, I
Right.
have cancer. I'm going to die. Like, I'm here because, like, I wanted to see you again before I didn't have a chance. Like, me as a writer, I'm like, that's how I would write this. Like, I would make her so, like, the way she is in this episode because in the end we're gonna flip it on you and drop this huge bombshell, and they did that but absolutely not how I expected them to. And that,
Hmm.
yeah, that fuck you scene between him and his mom is, didn't see it coming and absolutely thought it played out
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love like he learned something from Jamie in that other moment when Jamie's injured laying on the pitch, and like he teaches Jamie like you forgive your father, like he says fuck you, fuck you, fuck you to his dad, but then he says, and then I'd say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's taught Jamie in that moment, and then like on that trip home, from Man City to talking to his mom, like he reverses that, and he's probably thanked his mom his whole life, and he's never had a real conversation about what's going on with his mom. And I just love that juxtaposition in that
So well
episode
done. Oh, and then
specifically.
that, I mean,
Yeah.
that whole episode dealing with Jamie's mom, which was kind of awkward, can't lie about that, a little awkward
Yeah,
there. But then the whole time that they're making you think that his father has passed away, only to reveal that his dad was just in rehab. Like,
absolutely.
again, great storytelling. It led me somewhere I thought I knew where it was going. Oh man, Jamie's gonna have all this regret from not mending things with his dad when he finds out his dad's dead, and then all of a sudden you find out that's not what really happened.
Yeah.
And he does in the final episode get to mend, some time with his dad and whatnot. So that episode, despite the fact that you loved that scene the most from it, that episode as a whole was majorly important to the overall story of the show.
Yeah, I agree.
Question number
Perfect.
3, Jason.
Who is your favorite character on the show and why?
God, what a tough question. So many great characters and glimpses into people's lives. And I think like they wrote so well for so many different people. But Jamie's story, for me, his whole character arc throughout the entire series is just absolutely brilliant to me. You hate Jamie so much in season 1 about who
Absolutely.
he is, the way he treats people,
Yep.
how cavalier he is. But if you go back and watch, you get glimpses of Jamie and who he becomes later on, as well. But like him and Roy's relationship, the development there, like culminating in the sitting at Roy's birthday party and Phoebe saying, I had to invite your best friend, and
That's
them
right.
both being like, he's not my best friend. Like that to me is great. I think
Oh, is it?
Sunflowers, Amsterdam, right?
Oh,
Amsterdam
you.
is so good. Them spending that time together, and like you really getting to see Jamie recall his childhood and talking about Amsterdam. Roy talking about his grandfather learning to ride a bike, like that to me I love. um Jamie's relationship with Sam I think is amazing. um they He was the person that Sam said caused him the most trouble when he came there, and then to skip forward to Jamie starting for England's national team and wearing Sam's number because he felt some way about Sam not being um, called up for the Nigerian national team, and like that connection and bond that they made, absolutely amazing.
And
um
even jump into season 2, Jamie's the first one that puts the black tape over his chest after Sam
100%.
does.
Yeah,
That was one of those first moments where I was like, fuck, maybe I don't hate Jamie as much as I thought I
yeah,
did.
yeah, absolutely. Like they keep getting it. And then you have him and Keely's relationship, and you have Roy and Keely, and as much as you love Roy and Keely, there are things later in the series you're like, well, maybe Jamie and Keely could be a thing again. Like you're torn at that moment.
The scene where
um
Jamie apologizes to Keely in season 3 about the leaked
mhm.
photo, like
Oh yeah.
that that was awesome. That was very cool to see
Yeah,
his character get to that point.
absolutely. Like his maturity, and where which is funny because he does have another great quote is when him and Roy are arguing about coaching, and he says, I am being mature, you big stupid dumb hairy twat. That's such a great moment too.
Yes.
But yeah, his overall, like, where we leave Jamie from where we found him, like the icon hat to the
The
icog hat
icon.
being part
Yep.
of a team. His fear of Zava coming on because he knew what he was like, and he was afraid Zava was going to be the same way.
Mm-hmm.
um and then his identifying how total football worked for Richmond, like that to me, um was like the crowning moment of okay, this the Lasso way. It's Trent's crim. It doesn't. Who cares what number 4 is? It's the Lasso way. It's going to work whether or not you have it. And him standing up and saying, I don't want to be a prick. They give him the finger, and he's like, well,
I'm
I'm
not
not
doing
doing
it
it wrong.
wrong.
You're doing it
We're doing
wrong.
it wrong.
Wait, we're all doing it wrong. And him
Mm-hmm.
going to the board and saying, like, it's not about me up here. It's me being here and you being here. And don't go to me, go through me. And like that just, it opens up the team for what it is. And then just like the final point on that is when we see him playing at Man City, and he comes back in after the injury, and going back to season one, when before Ted's quote on "You're so focused on being 1 in a million, you forget you're 1 of 11." Ted says, "I know what your problem is," and he says, "My left cross," and like there's that joke in there, but Ted's pass to Sam was on a left cross, and Sam gets the goal, right? I'm sorry, and that happened before the injury, and then the injury happens. Jamie scores the goal and gets sent off, but as he's getting taken off the field, City stands up and like they're cheering for him. So just that great moment that he gets to have, which calls back to season one with Roy, or season two with Roy at Chelsea, and him coming onto the pitch as a coach really for the first time, and them cheering for Roy also. So his whole character arc throughout the entire thing, I think is just excellent. They do some great stuff with him. I think the whole reality TV show concept is such a funny idea of him like leaving the top Premier League club to go play, or to go play a part on a celebrity reality show. Yeah, it's hilarious. But
on that note, I'll wrap it up quick with what but I was just watching something recently for something else that we all love, is Star Wars, and it talked about how Ahsoka originally, like, everybody apparently hated her from a Clone Wars perspective. They were like, she's annoying, she's not listening, she's causing death, she's like, because of like what's happening. And I'm watching this and then immediately thought of Jamie. Was they were like, Dave Filoni literally made it so that you hated her and you saw all the worst aspects of her, so that when he started adding all these other layers where she kept getting better and better, you're rooting for her.
Right.
You're changing your perspective of her because of how awesome she's being able to change. And so, like, as soon as I watched that Star Wars video, which was kind of, it was only like 90 seconds, something like that, but it was one of those things where immediately Jamie came into my brain. I never hated him as much as Shane did, but I know that because I saw him as like the necessary person in that room, and like we all knew that guy, right? Like, and whether you were in high school or you're at work, whatever the case may be, you always knew somebody who was kind of Jamie-esque. So it was really cool to watch that story arc for sure, though. Oh, shut up.
No idea who that person would be in your life. All right, here we go. We're hitting question number 4. This is the deep one. This is the one for all the marbles. Chris, what does the show Ted Lasso mean to you?
So a couple of things. So I think Ted Lasso came to us at a great period of time, especially as an American who loves the beautiful game, because it helped usher in what is the future of the sport of soccer in the US being as large as it can be. For the longest time, it's been here a long time, but it's not been on the level as our top 3, or you could even say 4 or 5 sports. And I mean, starting back with, the commercial, the short, where announcing that MLS was coming to NBC, right? Like that helps generate some of that interest, and like we get that glimpse. But I feel like the evolution of Lasso as a show that many Americans are watching is bringing more interest to the game. The football scenes in Lasso are outstanding. They did such a great job of capturing the game, but also using Ted as a means to say, yeah, here's an American who doesn't understand anything about this game. And with Ted, in some aspect, we learn a lot about the game, ending in he was offside, right? And how do Ted finally learns what offsides is. So I feel like that's one. Like to me, it's very important. It's going to be a very important part of the history, along with the recent signing of Messi going to Inter Miami, and like that we will see soccer continue to explode in America to the point where it will be challenging those top three sports I think that we have in the country. More so for me, as I think as a parent and a people leader in my role at work, watching and rewatching a few times the series and the way that Ted interacts with everyone in his life, really, but specifically the people that he coaches, and being a soccer coach myself, and really focusing on not the wins and losses, but helping people be the best versions of themselves. Because if you do that, the wins and losses can come, because people then start wanting to win for each other, and their losses impact them as a whole. Not, they can impact them individually, but like they feel each other's losses too. So much about this show lives in that world. And what I like is, as I was reflecting on the questions and going through this, like my favorite quote was, it was a Ted quote, but it's said by Beard. My favorite quote from my favorite memory was really from his mom, and it was kind of centered around his mother. My favorite character is Jamie. So the show's Ted Lasso, and to his point, when reading Trent's copy, or reading the copy of Trent's book, his only note is that he just changed the title because it's not about him. It never was. And like if you watch it, like really it is, there's so much around Ted, but like the way that the show's written and the depth that you get into with so many of the other characters, it really is for him about everyone else, and everyone is going to be able to move forward without Ted, though it's going to be difficult. And like we see the struggle that Rebecca has. I can't imagine what Beard's life is going to be like without Ted going forward so close. But
I'm still gonna call BS on the end. Like, there's no way Beard gets married without Ted there. Like that doesn't happen.
Yes, and that's that whole
bad.
thing. Was he dreaming on the plane? Like, was it happening, or was that him just falling asleep on the plane ride, and the things that he was seeing were in his head? I don't know.
You should have, everything else made plausible sense to me. That should have been something like during the end credits. It should have been a Marvel bonus scene.
Yeah.
Something that happened, so that way and Ted should have been there. Like that was my only thing, because like immediately when it happened, I got pulled out of the episode because I was like, no, I've never felt this way about a Lasso episode until this moment.
That actual moment.
Was like, no, he would not miss Beard's wedding.
Well, and not only would he not miss it, what we would want to see is Ted there with Michelle
and Henry.
And Henry both there with him. So I'm with you. Like it's definitely out of place.
To touch on what you said about the show, I definitely think that a lot of people that I've talked to about the show over time, they'll always go back to, I don't like seasons 2 and 3 as much as I like season 1. And I think that a lot of people focus on the fact that it is called Ted Lasso, and most of the first season is about Ted. We see through Ted's eyes these characters, but I think seasons 2 and 3 do a huge, amazing shift of showing you more about the people around him and not making it about him. So much like the way you mentioned with Trent Crimm's book and how he was seeing it as this is all because of Ted, but it's really more about all the people that Ted was inspiring and not necessarily a show about him, which is why I think whatever spinoff they end up coming up with, that most likely the women's team, but whatever they do, it will still work very well the same way Frasier worked after Cheers.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree. Sorry. I agree with what you said there. Yep.
We have come to the end of our time. We are ready to make a substitution. Chris, it has been a pleasure having you on to talk about this show that we all love so much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, guys. It's been awesome.
We're going to hit you with the red card right now. That's what
I'm getting sent off.
And Chris Meek just got thrown off with a red card. So we got a new player checking into the match. Jason, can you please introduce our new player?
Our new player is from Midland, Texas. And well, anyway, he's originally hails from Jacksonville, Florida, if I'm remembering correctly, Mister.
That's right.
And Grant.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you
Yeah,
for joining us,
definitely.
man.
Of course.
Here to talk about one of the greatest shows ever made. Jason, take it away.
I
I was
love
going
it.
to say, I don't watch the show, but apparently the shirt that you're currently wearing is a Wrexham shirt. I keep meaning to turn on that show, but I keep forgetting to do so. I'll admit, video games and movies take up more of my time than I care to admit. Yeah, so love the shirt, love the background. So far, Shane, we've got me and you got different backgrounds, and
Yep.
both of our guests have got different backgrounds too. I'm hoping we can keep that going with the next
2 for 2.
And yeah, hopefully we can do 2 for 2 or 4 for 4 or something along those lines. So
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
all right, so we'll get right into it. Mr. Brian, sir, we're going to get to the Ted Lasso questions. The first one being, there are a lot of memorable quotes and lines from the series. Which one stands out the most to you?
Oh gosh. I actually spent the evening talking to my wife Amy, who Jason you know, and I was bouncing the back and forth off of her tonight, and I feel like there's even been a lot lately that have become household quotes around the house, and it's like it's the stupidest, silliest quote, but we've the football is life quote has become like just kind of a funny mainstay around the house. Even like we throw all kinds of stuff around, like all kinds of stuff is life now.
Nice.
We'll get going, and it's like taco night is life, and it's just funny stuff like that. And it's just one of those stupid ones that like it's one of those earworms that gets stuck in your head.
Well, and I can't
yeah, I think
say anything about that since this episode is called Ted Lasso is Life. So
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I'm stealing your same concept from you.
But yeah, the more I thought about it, I kept on getting sidetracked onto more of like scenes from the series when I was thinking about quotes as far as stuff. But yeah, I think that's the first immediate one that just popped out into our heads that was like and we were just, even as we were rewatching some tonight, Roy Kent just going, instead of actually blowing his whistle, because I guess he's got an allergy to dissimilar metals, and his things, whistle, or just a Roy Kent grunt is always a good one too. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. That is dope. So the next question. There's a lot of classic scenes throughout all 3 seasons of the show. There's a lot of really memorable moments. But if you had to pick just one of them, if there's one moment from all 3 seasons of Ted Lasso that immediately comes to your mind when someone says Ted Lasso, what's the most memorable scene of the show for you?
Oh, this is another one I struggled on. If it's one of those ones, if you got to pick one, and I'm like, it sounds stupid because it's the most stereotypical one that I know everybody's gonna pick, but it's the dartboard scene where he's battling back
Oh,
and forth
yes.
with Rupert and going just like, and it ends up being like that. You don't judge people before you ask questions and all that stuff, and just that it was one of those ones where I found myself at the end of the scene, just you're almost kind of holding your breath and being like, and then there's a like exhale at the end, and it's just just rewatching it again the other night. It was just crazy rewatching that scene, and it was even as just I was looking at it again, I was like, I don't want to say this one because it seems like if everybody's going to say the same thing, but you look at it and you rewatch the rest of the show, and it's like, but dang, they did a good job on that one. So yeah.
They absolutely did. And I will quantify it. That is my favorite scene from the first season. Not
Okay.
necessarily my favorite scene overall, but of the first season, that's 100% my favorite scene. Oh, I forgot I was left-handed. Like, it's
Exactly.
so good. Jason, you
Love
got any
it.
comments about that scene?
Well, I just think it's funny because I think at one point when we were first watching the show, Shane, or maybe like I can't remember if I can't remember if I was watching the show while it was coming out that first season or not, or if I watched it all at the end. I can't remember, or if I played, and maybe I jumped on a little late. and could
I think
binge
we
a
jumped
little
on a
bit.
little late. I don't know if it was all the way when it was out, but I know that I talked about it on the podcast a couple of times before you started. So
And but yeah, that scene is so memorable. Like out of everything that and you know, out of all 3 seasons, it's one of those things where I'm like, he literally tells everybody, you don't know who I am yet.
Yep.
Like everybody is there that matters for the most part. And I mean, you know, his team or his players aren't there, but as far as like having Rebecca's back the entire time, everybody underestimating him and not understanding what he's capable of. But then on top of that, like I really enjoy I remember at one point he did the I think Shane and I think we were texting not too long after that episode came out because I want to say we were like he Mio Montoya or he Princess Brided him with the whole like Dread Pirate Roberts, that's what it was. We were like he Dread Pirate Roberts him because he's like, oh, I'm left-handed. like he changed it up, and I remember us texting that at that point in time. And so yeah, it's definitely, if not the most memorable, it's definitely easily in the top 5, at least for me, for sure. So
most memorable, would you say that's your favorite scene though? Like I'll agree that that's a super memorable scene, but like, is there of the 3 seasons, Brian, any scene that like hits you emotionally more than that? Like, is there something that you relate to more than that scene?
Oh, I think just looking back on it, again, I've tried to binge all the last 3 seasons in the last day and a half, so a lot of it seems jumbled together for me right now. Um, it's I can't even say there's one scene. It's just there's a lot. It's crazy to me. It's one of those shows that I almost feel like tricked me into watching it. They make you think it's going to be one of those just like happy-go-lucky sarcastic shows, and there's a lot of that. But there's also just a ton of like, holy crap, they got into a lot of like emotionally deep stuff in here that like made you think about mental health and just all sorts of different stuff with what goes on with Ted and his panic attacks and Roy growing kind of throughout the whole series. And I mean, even guys like Jamie Tart growing throughout the whole series. And it's one of those ones I think just throughout the whole thing, they kind of suck you in with what you think is just going to be a lighthearted, emotionally or not emotionally, just kind of a funny thing. And then the end of a lot of episodes just kind of leave you going, dang, like they like something there just hit home. So I don't even know if it's any really one moment, but just kind of the whole series. Yeah.
Question number 3,
who is
Mr. Mayor.
your favorite character on the show and why?
So you sent me these questions a couple days ago. I struggled on this one a little bit. I think I've got to go with Roy, from just kind of looking at what his character's like on the show. It's almost kind of with conventional, just kind of constraints of how we kind of have to behave ourselves in the real world. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, gosh, he says all the stuff I wish I could say to people, and it's just like F off and like that kind of thing. So I went back and forth with like part of a little bit of him is who I wish I could be in certain scenarios, and I think in another case where I do feel like I have to be polite and well behaved all the time. I actually, it seems like I would go with Ted there, but actually Sam.
Oh,
In
nice.
that he's I think when Rebecca is complimenting him when she's breaking up with him, actually, just about how kind and different things he is, I was like, that's who I really should be like. But it's like the almost kind of selfish part of me goes like, man, like I just wish I could be Royce times. But yeah, so I guess if I had to go with the top answer, I'd say sometimes I just wish I could tell people how it is, and I wish I could be a Roy.
And the great thing with Roy Kent throughout the show is like, obviously Jamie Tartt's got a huge changing character from season 1 to season
Mhm.
3. Roy is basically still the same dude throughout the entire show, yet you can tell he's changed. Like
Yep.
he still acts the same way, but through like the way he's still an asshole to Jamie in season 3, but it's out of like caring for Jamie as opposed to he's an asshole to Jamie in season 1 because he fucking hates him. So like
Yep.
he still acts the same, but you can tell that he's just different enough. And I can't agree more with you about Sam. Like Sam is just a solid top-notch dude throughout the entire series.
Yep.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, so this is the hit home. Where's the emotions? How's this play out for you? Tell me what the show Ted Lasso means to you.
Ooh, that's a big one. It's I think I already kind of touched on some of this and kind of some of my previous responses, but it's just one of those, it makes you think about stuff that you didn't think you were going to be thinking about at the end of I guess I can honestly say at the pretty much every episode. And if not across 3 seasons, definitely kind of the cliffhangers they leave you on at the end of the 3 seasons. You like I said, you just kind of go into it thinking like, oh, I need something that's going to make me laugh, and then at the end it makes you think about like, how do I treat people? And it's one of those things that it just really makes you think about life. And I think that's what makes it one of those really good shows. There's a lot of those, like I was even thinking about earlier today, and I was like, for me, I just turned 40 this year. So there's a lot of those shows where I'm like, I feel like the shows like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Boy Meets World and just like some of those that, yeah, they're lighthearted comedic shows, but they don't really, a lot of those shows these days are just that. It's just there for fun. But this is one of those ones that it's a ton of fun to watch, and you laugh the whole time you're watching it. But then there's just those times where it makes you sit back and go, well, dang, I need to sit down and process this and think about this a little bit. And it's just one of those shows that doesn't exist like that anymore. And I'm really hoping that I've heard there's all sorts of spin-off rumors and things like that, because obviously Jason Sudeikis and a few other cast members, they're like, Ted Lasso is done after season 3. And you're like, but there's so many other directions they could take spin-off. So I'm really hoping they do, because there's a lot of those things that I think there are possibilities for that are still sitting out there.
100%. And I think the show could live on without Jason Sudeikis. I feel like enough of the writers like Brendan Hunt and Brett Goldstein are good enough to, and I mean, I don't know what Bill Lawrence has got going on, but like I feel like they definitely have enough of a solid base, a group that could write either a women's show, because they kind of hinted at that with Keely giving Rebecca the women's proposal, or even if they just did a spinoff and called it AFC Richmond and just had, Beard, Roy Kent, and Nate back for just showing them as the coaches. Like we talked with Chris Meek about the fact that while the show was originally called Ted Lasso, season 2 and 3 kind of pull him back and show you the people in the community around there and make it more about the characters that aren't Ted Lasso. And that basis right there could definitely carry on to a show without him being around. So yeah, I really hope that whatever spinoff they decide to do, if the majority of those people are somehow involved, I'm definitely 100% in and can't wait to see. I can only imagine it would bring more good into the world with whatever they decided to do.
Absolutely.
So it looks like we got some time for some extra time, as it's not the halftime whistle yet. So, Mr. Mayor, do you got any follow-ups or anything else you want to ask Brian?
Brian, we usually do this crazy list of questions when somebody is a first-time guest on our show.
All right, let's go for it.
It's like 10 questions long, but we'll pull down a couple. And my first one for you is going to be, what's your favorite movie theater snack to have when you go to see a movie at the movie theater?
Oh gosh, favorite movie theater snack. I am gonna have to go with Skittles on that one. Okay. So I'm the thing about me and my wife Amy is we kind of balance each other out. I love Skittles. She loves peanut M&Ms, which I also really like peanut M&Ms. So I'll grab one, she'll grab the other, and we kind of share a little bit.
Right on. Another one of the questions. If this was the film about your life, who would you cast as yourself in the movie?
Oh God. I'm gonna go with I'm completely blanking out here. Why's my mind going blank here? Venom, who's Tom Hardy? I'm
Tom
gonna go
Hardy.
with Tom
Okay, I
Hardy.
could
You
definitely
know,
see that.
I look nothing like him, but like
I can
if
see
one
it.
of those ones, if I could, I was like, I'm gonna go Tom Hardy.
If you
No,
had to
that's
cast
perfect.
this movie and Jason was one of the supporting characters, who would you cast as Jason?
Oh gosh. Um oh um oh come on. I'm looking at Jason right now here on the camera. I'm trying something's trying to come to mind. I shouldn't have had this last cocktail before I came on the camera. Um oh gosh, I'm just completely blanking out here, man. Um
All right, Jason. If you had to,
I'm dying here
Brian's
on camera.
thinking, Jason, who would you cast as Brian in a movie?
Tom Hardy is like really like as soon as you said it, I was like, oh dang. He's not super tall, and he's definitely got the you especially when you've seen him with a beard. I'm like,
Mhm.
that totally could work for me on this for you for sure. Like, so I thought that was a brilliant casting moment. So it's either that or if you did put a hat on, yeah, you might look a little bit like Beard, kind of like how Shane does.
I As
So
Shane was talking tonight, I was like, holy crap. I mean, we've met before, but I was like, he reminds me of Beard, like even some of his mannerisms and the way he talked. I was thinking I was gonna try to work that in somewhere. I was like, he reminds me of Beard a lot. So
I sincerely appreciate that. I get that a lot. So Chris Meek, who was on before you, him and I go to a lot of Indy 11 matches together. Probably like a month ago, we were waiting in line to buy stuff or whatnot. We were talking to this guy from Nashville FC, and Chris went off to do something else, and I was still talking to this guy, and the guy was like, "Hey man, can I say something?" And I was like, sure, okay." And he was like, "Man, do you watch the show Ted Lasso?" And I was like, "Absolutely, of course I do. I love the show." In my mind, I knew immediately where this was going because I was wearing sunglasses while I was there. And he was like, "Dude, you look exactly like the guy that plays Coach Beard." And I was like, "You are not the first person to tell me that, and I appreciate it because I take that as a compliment." One of the biggest compliments I ever got was when Jason first started watching the show. I don't know how many episodes in you were, but you were a couple episodes in and you texted me and you were like, "Okay, so obviously I see myself as Ted Lasso in this show, but you're definitely my Coach Beard." But yeah, so
definitely.
I definitely, and other people on this show, when we've asked them the questions about casting and whatnot, a couple of people have mentioned Brendan Hunt for me if they were to cast me in a movie.
So
So awesome. All
yeah.
right.
Yep.
Well, we have hit halftime. We are going to switch over to Troy now and see what Troy, who has never watched Ted Lasso, so I don't know what Troy is going to talk about this month on his halftime show. Go ahead, Jason.
I was gonna say, Brian, since you're a first time person being on first time guest on our show, I'm only gonna hit you with the yellow card as we move you along.
I think that's fair.
Appreciate it.
Yellow Brian, and now we're going to switch over and see what Troy has to talk about on this month's halftime show. What an amazing first half of this podcast. We have already had two amazing guests with awesome stuff to say about Ted Lasso. What a great time. And here we are, my favorite part of every show. This is my favorite episode I think we've ever done on the podcast, so I can't wait to see what Troy brings to the halftime talk of this Ted Lasso episode. Although I have to throw it out there. I know you've never watched the show.
Oh, wow. That is true. I've never watched one full episode of Ted Lasso. That is, yeah, that's true.
Cool. So our Ted Lasso episode halftime talk. Bring it on, man. Let me see what you got to say.
Believe, right? That's what it's
Believe.
about. Yeah. Okay, so like Ted Lasso is kind of like an interesting case study for me. I love Jason Sudeikis.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when they ran those original like Ted Lasso commercials in conjunction with like the Premier League coverage.
Yep.
And
Like
I thought they were fun.
2012-ish.
Yeah, I thought they were clever. They were fun, whatever.
Yeah.
And then like the show kind of caught me by surprise, I guess. Like I think it was already out before somebody was like Ted Lasso, and I was just like, that's a commercial, and they're like, no, it's a show, and I'm like, okay. Um, I don't have an Apple TV. I'm not
Okay.
going to get it for one show. And but really the overriding thing with Ted Lasso, and this is like kind of a thing that throughout my life is probably like, you know, consistent narrative is like sometimes like a recommendation or like the person recommending something can like relegate that recommendation to like the dustbin of history. And like what I mean about that is like I like when people would sell me Ted Lasso
Hmm.
or try to sell me Ted Lasso, it was always from this like this skewed perspective of like, oh well, you like soccer, and I'm like, yeah, I do. And I was like, but like, I think it's really presumptuous of you to think that like I like whatever type of soccer Ted Lasso is going to hustle out there.
Sure.
Like, like it's like you don't know what kind of soccer I like, bitch. Like I like rough soccer. I like mean, like Tony Pulis, like we're gonna try and win 1-0, and like if we have to like take out your best players to do it type soccer, like that's what we're gonna do. Like I like rough, physical, mean spirited soccer.
Now, what I find
That's what I
hilarious about this is you've had people, it sounds like, that tried to sell you on Ted Lasso because you like soccer, where anytime
yeah.
I've tried to sell people on it, I'm the exact opposite. They'll be like, oh, I don't like soccer. And I'm like, no, then you will like this show, because this show isn't about soccer at all. This show is literally
Well, that's
about the
great.
people. Yeah, it's the soccer is a very much like fourth character in the show. Like, yes, he's a soccer coach, but it's literally much more just about people and relationships than it has anything. It's not like, I mean, as the show goes on, they do have more. Like season one has very few actual scenes on the pitch. As the series goes on, they do kind of add some more throughout it, which is probably the weakest part of the show, in my opinion. But like, I just find it interesting that people are like, "Oh, you like soccer, so you would like this." Where everybody I talk to that's like, "Oh, I don't like soccer," I'm like, "That's fine. You don't have to worry about soccer in this show."
It's like, oh, well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll hop on that 6.99 or two free week trial or whatever.
sure.
But like, if I did, like,
Hmm.
I always want to come back and be like, oh, do you like soccer? And if they're like, yeah, I should be like, you should watch the English Game. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not. What's
It
the
is
English game?
it's a Netflix series. Like I imagine it was originally like a BBC series or
Uh
whatever,
huh.
but it's done by like Julian Fellows, the guy that did
Oh,
what's it called? Downton Abbey,
yep.
right? And so the English Game is about like the like fledgling or like I guess the formation of the FA in England.
Oh, okay.
Back when soccer was like just kind of like a like competitive soccer was basically just like an exercise between two different like mills or like textile plants and like
Hmm.
you know and there was like there was kind of like this like disjointedness in the sport between like the wealthy would play it and they wanted the like to run it essentially, and then it was about like kind of like the first mill town that ever won the FA Cup or whatever.
So it's like it's a dramatization, right? Like it's not a documentary. Like
No,
a
it's not a
show.
documentary. It's like
Okay, okay. Right on.
it's like
Cool,
masterpiece theater for like
cool.
guys that like break legs with challenges. It's incredible. The soccer is wild. It gives you like a real sense of like how soccer has evolved over time. um, you know, and it's just like yeah, like I like the soccer I like is the
Hmm.
war of attrition type
Okay.
shit. And I don't feel like Ted Lasso is getting into like the like neutrality of soccer, as it
Not at
were.
all.
Um, you know,
But you being a Jason Sudeikis fan, I think you will enjoy the humor in this show, because the show is a lot of humor and a lot of heart. It's got a lot of like 80s references. It's got a lot of like just like one-liners that go by really quick.
see, that's the thing. Like, I'm not even positive that that's going to be the Jason Sudeikis that I really like either.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
Okay.
it's like my favorite type of Jason Sudeikis is like the We're the Millers type Jason
That's
Sudeikis, where
what I
he's like
assumed.
very where he's like very edgy and kind of
Mhm.
like snarky and mean.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
no,
because I think
polar
that guy
opposite.
does like, yeah, that's what I've gathered. And
Yeah.
so like I don't know that like anything is going like I don't know that despite the fact that this show looks like it would be tailor made for me, like
Mhm.
I've always kind of had this like suspicion that I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like this as much as everybody seems to think, or as much as like I would if you just wrote this down on paper.
Okay, gotcha.
And so like
I
I,
think you
I
will
feel
be
like
surprised.
I don't like well, I'm sure I probably will be, but okay, so like I don't have like I didn't write this down. This is kind of off the
Uh-huh.
cuff here as far as a thought process, but like I it seems like there's like a little bit of like there was like a little bit of tweaking between like the character that was in the original commercials and the
Oh,
guy that
absolutely,
is
yeah.
on the thing because like when he first started on the commercials he was kind of an asshole about it, like he was just like I'm
Well,
a
and
Texas football coach, like
he's a
this is
lot
what I
dumber
do,
in those commercials. Like they played him up as
yeah.
just like being completely dumb. He's more ignorant and naive, I would say, on the TV show compared to how he was on the commercials. Because like, yeah, the commercials just played him up to be completely dumb.
Well, like dumb in like an arrogant way,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is like my favorite type of dumb, and it's also a thing that I think like Jason Sudeikis pulls off like really well.
Aha.
And so like yeah, there's just things about Ted Lasso that I'm just kind of like, I don't know, bro. Like it's like I get that you want to like you know use sports, use whatever as like this like kind of like entry point into like giving somebody like the feel and positivity of
Yeah.
humanity, as it were, like the finer points of humanity. But
Well,
I just don't know that this is going to be the vessel for me.
if when you ever watch any of it, I got one thing to ask, and that's at least give it 3 episodes. I really think that the third episode of the series is a really solid episode. If you get to that third episode and you're still not digging it, I completely understand. But I will be interested to see when if you start watching it because a lot of people started watching it during COVID. So it was a very like dark and weird time in the world, and like everybody was kind of unsure about a lot of shit. And then this show came
And so the
along and kind of came out
positivity
of
went over
nowhere.
really well.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna be interested to
Yeah.
see if we've come through the COVID shit, like how if
Now that we're back to being cynical, if like that shit holds up.
right? Yeah, exactly. So I'll be interested to see that. But if
Yeah.
whenever you start watching it, please at least give it 3 episodes. I think the third episode is really solid. The first two are a lot of character development and setup, but the third episode I think is pretty solid. Do you like the movie Major League?
I love the movie Major League.
Okay, the plot of the first season of Ted Lasso is almost exactly the plot of Major League.
Oh, so like a rich person tries to shank the season so that they can move Cleveland to Florida or whatever. Yeah.
Very, 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 very similar. Not exactly, but a very similar plot outline for the first season.
Yeah, no, I love the movie Major League. It's probably my favorite. It's one of my 5 favorite sports movies of all time. Like,
Gotcha.
and probably my favorite baseball movie of all time, hands down. Um, but no, so yeah, Ted Lasso, like trying to
Mhm.
find humanity through sport,
Yep.
as it were. I've recently been on a deep dive where I am finding that in like the most like niche, data driven, like ridiculous sort of way.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the movies of John Bois?
Give me like the name sounds familiar, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay, he's like he works for SB Nation and he does like almost things almost exclusively like on YouTube or like in the public sphere.
Okay.
And he made the history of the Seattle Mariners, which is like
Not familiar with that.
like maybe it's like a 4 or 5 hour long movie that charts the entire history season by season of the Seattle Mariners.
Are you serious?
And there's maybe like 30 minutes of actual baseball footage in the thing.
Really?
Like
it just covers the players?
He just kind of covers like the history of the team, like how it started. One of his big thing is like this all takes place on kind of like a graph or like a spreadsheet sort of thing.
Okay.
it's big on charting like win-loss records and like things like that, and just kind of like going in depth about like the oddities and like the weirdness of like this sport. And he did a similar one for the history of the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Ended up in like
kind of weird.
ended up in being like one of the greatest graphs I've ever seen in the history of the world, in which he took the Atlanta Falcons, a traditionally losing NFL franchise,
Uh-huh.
and he set their 500 record on like an axis, and over time, as they lost and lost and lost and lost, this thing would go on. But like every once in a while, there were cut-ins where they would have winning seasons or winning like a couple of winning seasons or whatever. And over time, it made like the wing of the Atlanta Falcon logo.
What? No way.
It's just one of those things. Like it's like, I guess you can manipulate data to do whatever you want with it. And so, and the thing that John Bois likes to do with it is point out that like even over these like historically long points of data and reference, and that's what sports is. It's basically just kind of like this continuation of points on a graph or data subsets, but like with every set of data you find these like weird anomalies, these like glitches in the matrix. And like one of the things that John Bois is really good at doing is like kind of like finding like the humanity in all of this. And he kind of brings it back to like that, like, that thing in Jurassic Park where like the guy's just like life finds a way or whatever.
Yep.
Like human beings find a way to fuck up like even the most perfectly rendered like points of data. The best John Bois movie by far is this movie called Captain Ahab, the story of Dave Stieb. Dave Stieb was a pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays in the 1980s. He was an incredible like pitcher, but his like win-loss record was not like reflective of that because the team sucked essentially. Although his underlying numbers were like fantastic. And so like Dave Stieb became famous, essentially sort of famous, for throwing on 3 different occasions. He threw no hitters that he lost on the last out. And at one point in his career, he did these on consecutive times pitching.
Oh, wow.
And so John Bois like makes this movie about like just how like Dave Stieb is like Captain Ahab. He's out here searching for the white whale of perfection, as it were. And like all these like near misses and near misses and near misses. And then it comes time, like one of his last opportunities to do this as an aging pitcher. And what John Bois does with like 30 seconds of game footage, some old newspaper clippings, and a bar graph literally like made me sweat with like anticipation. Like literally got a physiological reaction from me, which is something that like only a movie like There Will Be Blood can do. Like if you can draw like an actual physical reaction and physiological, like I am sweating because the drama is so intense and I feel like I am there, you are doing something right. And even if you're doing that something with bar graphs, it's incredible. So YouTube it. Captain Ahab, the story of Dave Stieb. The guy just makes fantastic movies. He uses sports to find the chaos that is human existence.
Well, and as you've been talking, I realized why his name sounds familiar to me, because like you texted me 2 weeks ago and asked me if I'd ever heard of him, and I told you no then, and I was like, that's why the name sounds familiar, because you've already asked me that question.
Yes, yeah. I want to get everybody on board with this guy and just to see like what he does.
Nice. I'll have to look into him.
Yeah, I see what he does, and it seems like just opinion on him is split. There's a faction of people who thinks that he just makes 8-hour-long PowerPoint presentations, and then there's people like me who's just like, no, this is cinema. This is like for better or worse. this is new media and what it has done to cinema.
I mean, obviously
And
somebody's paying him to do this stuff, so obviously somebody believes in him.
yeah, he's got one coming out next week. The history of the Minnesota Vikings should be fun.
This guy is all over the place. Like when you first told me about that first one being in Seattle, I was like, oh, obviously he's probably from Seattle. And then you tell me he did
No,
something in Atlanta.
I think he's from San Francisco originally. Like I know
Okay.
he cops to being a San Francisco 49ers fan.
Oh, okay. Right on.
He also made a movie about the Charlotte Bobcats of like 2013,
Oh, wow.
and just about how like Michael Jordan and his like terrible relationship with tanking.
That would have been like Raymond Felton years, right? Like 2013 would have been like Raymond Felton.
I think Raymond Felton was on the team. It was like the year before Anthony Davis. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was like the Michael Kidd Gilchrist era of things. Yeah. So
man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, getting down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, check him out. Like if you like sports and
Absolutely.
you're interested in just like strange little stories from the history of sports that often overlooked.
And it sounds like something I can put on while I'm doing other stuff and just kind of be able to listen to it.
Well, yeah, I mean the one about the Minnesota or the one about the Atlanta Falcons is like 8 hours long. Like I did not have my eyes glued to the screen for like 8 hours. Like yeah, but yeah,
cool.
man. The history of things is rife with wildness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get somebody who is willing to flesh out the long histories of any institution, you're going to find just like pure gold, I think. And
sure,
that might be one of the lasting legacies of the John Bois films.
Nice. I'll definitely have to look into that and find some time to watch some of that stuff. I will probably look through all of the stuff he's done and find at least a team that I care about or semi care about. Like I might start with that Bobcats one since I assume Michael Jordan's involved, but yeah, I'll find one of them to watch.
Love letter to Mike.
What else you got for us, man?
Of those in the nothing really.
Okay.
Saw Top Gun at the Art Craft.
Like the original Top Gun?
Beautiful 35 millimeter print, like almost flawless.
Would have loved to have gone to that. I assume I was probably out of town when it happened.
It was beautiful. Yeah, that movie's really good. It's better than Maverick. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I agree. I don't have anything against Top Gun Maverick. I thought it was a very well done movie, but I mean it pales in comparison to the original.
I did too, but
yeah.
But after watching the original yesterday for the first time in probably like a decade, I was like, wow, this movie is really good.
What's the Aircraft got coming up soon? They got anything else good coming up?
I think they're playing like Beverly Hills Cop this weekend. And then beyond that, I know they're doing a Double Indemnity at some point, and 3 Days of the Condor, which I will be there for.
All right.
Just like living out the. I just have like an obsession with all the movies that played on Channel 4 every Saturday and Sunday for the duration of my childhood, and that is one of them. So
very awesome. Yeah, I may hit you up about that. That sounds like I haven't seen that in a long time, and seeing a print of it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. That's always like the big draw. I'm just like, oh, what does this look like
on 35? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but no, the Top Gun print was beautiful. Like, it was probably the best one that I've seen in a long time that they've had circle through.
Very cool. Well, brother, as always, I appreciate your time. I love having you on here. I love getting you involved. Next month is a Jason Talks episode, so I'm not sure what the topic is yet, but I'll make sure to pass that along when I know. And yeah, man, I look forward to catching up with you next month. Thank you for all your time this month.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Believe.
Absolutely. Believe. All right, let's get back to the second half of the podcast and see what's going on when we have Pat Dyer check into the podcast. And as always, yet another fun Troy's halftime talk from somebody who doesn't watch Ted Lasso at all. So, I mean, I know. It was not Ted Lasso related, but it was still in the sports genre, so it's fine. We're all good. I appreciate Troy's time, as always. I just wish that he watched Ted Lasso. But anyway, still a pleasure to have Troy on every episode. We are back for the second half of the show. We are here with Pat. Pat, how are you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man.
So
I love the shirt you're wearing. I love the Roy Kent shout out there. So, I mean, the entire time I've watched the show, I've known you watch the show also. I was kind of sad you didn't show up in your Ted Lasso cosplay that I saw you do for Halloween a couple years ago because that was beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, I had to work today, so left that at home. But I do own a Ted Lasso Halloween costume. I don't have the mustache anymore. Have to grow that on my own.
Sure, but that cosplay was awesome that you did when you did that for Halloween. So we got 4 questions to chat with Pat about. Mr. Mayor, if you will start us off, please.
Absolutely. There are a lot of memorable quotes and lines from the series. Which one stands out to you the most?
All right. Well, I was thinking about this, and I will say I'm going to cheat a little, but I'm not. I've got a couple of different things, ones that stand out, and then probably a couple of reasons behind that kind of just tie in with kind of how the show went and kind of the message I got from it.
Cool.
But then I will finish with I think the one that I think probably sums it up the most for me. But I think the one that floats around a lot is from the dart scene where he says, "Be curious, not judgmental." That's a very good one.
Absolutely.
I like the one that says, "I believe in hope. I believe in belief." Just gives you that positive attitude. But the one that I think really, even though it's one that a little bit is fairly popular, is the whole one where he says, "Do you know what the happiest animal on earth is?" Says goldfish. You know why? And it's because they've got 10-second memory. Be a goldfish. And I think that's number one fact that I didn't know. Didn't know goldfish had memories. Didn't know how long. But also just kind of gives you a good little belief of don't let life or anything kind of get you down. You control what you can control. Live in the moment. And move on to the next thing and try and stay positive. When you dwell on things or you have a longer memory on things, you don't forget, you don't forgive, things like that. It's not great for you, and your mental health and your overall enjoyment of life. So I think of all of them, that kind of a lot of Ted Lasso has that kind of belief and hope and positivity to it. Although they dealt with some other subjects, but I think that really kind of sums up succinctly the best way to don't dwell on things, move on to the next thing, live in the present.
Absolutely, I completely agree with all that. I think all three of those quotes are good ones, and especially the one that you picked. So let's go a little deeper now. Let's say of all of the scenes of all of the show, what scene stands out to you the most? What's the most memorable scene from this show? Like, what scene did you emotionally connect with the most? And like, it just when you think about Ted Lasso, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Gotcha. I would say there's a couple scenes that are all kind of tied into the same sort of thing. All kind of a little bit centered around the believe sign.
Okay.
Where they put that up. I think the big thing is both the ones that kind of connect a little bit more with me are from this season. You had the one where towards the end he gives his big speech about not needing to sign and kind of talks the team up and says, we don't need a sign, to believe. But I think the one that really got me the most, I wasn't totally expecting. I guess I was a little bit from the promo trailer where they had them all like making their own signs. But I think the one that really hit me is when you find out that when that sign was ripped up, that they all kept a little piece, and when they put it back together, and then when you kind of go back, you find out some of these different ways that they even kept the pieces. Like, for instance, Jamie is a bookmark in the book that Ted gave him first season, I believe. So how they kind of that all the sign itself and the meaning, and I think Ted himself all had a special meaning to all of them. And I think that sometimes he probably got down on himself and with life and with his panic attacks, all these different things. But to know that he touched them all in a special way, and that it wasn't just that they were angry about it being ripped up, but they felt like they needed to keep a little piece of that, and then they all, when they needed it most, kind of all came together as a team.
Love it.
And like relating to that, what I really think is cool is when in season 3 when Rebecca goes and talks to the psychic or not the psychic, whatever that lady was that was like giving
Yeah,
her all this stuff.
she's a psychic.
It's like yeah,
Yeah.
so she's got that green bowl and she tells her the story about the Japanese art of breaking things and then
Yeah.
putting it back together and melding it with gold. I love the fact that at the very end of the show, when they show the believe sign, it's the one that Ted had ripped up, that everybody kept the pieces of, and then they put it back together so that they could put it back up. They're like, they didn't make a new sign to put up there. They literally pieced back together from the pieces of the sign that was ripped up. Like I love that correlation that like they set that up at the beginning of season 3, and you get that payoff in the very last episode. Like,
and I actually forgot that. Like, I remember them talking and all, but I that part had slipped my mind of that correlation. So kind of makes me like that scene even better now.
Absolutely, man. There are so many things that they set up in this show, and when they did, like, obviously that was season 3, so it was pretty planned out. But like a lot of the callbacks in season 3 that they did, going back to stuff that happened in season 1, was just like they had some very smart writers, and I doubt a lot of it was planned out when they were doing season 1, but when you have intelligent writers that, I mean, some people may think it's retconning things, but finding a way to tie back into stuff that happened previously is still great storytelling, in my opinion. And they did a lot of that in season 3.
Yeah. Like even I said with the little piece of the sign, the I think it took a second for me to kind of go back and catch the part that, Jamie's saw it was out of a book, didn't realize that's the book he gave. So even that, all those, like I said, little things that you don't necessarily catch that when you think about it or rewatch that, like, oh wow, that references this, or that's, this is how this has changed over time and now is this, but it all has one piece of like a big puzzle.
Over the weekend, I was rewatching this show, and I was rewatching season 3 over the weekend, and then last night after we had done some recording, I kicked on an episode because I wanted to kind of. There's an episode I want to talk about at some point that I wanted to have fresh in my mind, and the reporter in season 3 that Roy Kent calls the Goblin Queen, the Goblin King, like she's got the like bleach blonde hair and whatnot. I didn't put together that in season 2 she was also one of the reporters there, but she has black hair in that season. So like I didn't realize that it was the same person until I went back and I was like, oh, that's the chick that has blonde hair in season 3. So like they did. Every time I watch the show, I can catch something that I didn't realize before.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mr. Mayor, let's go on to question number 3 now.
Who is your favorite character on the show and why?
Definitely another kind of tough one where I kind of mulled over some things, because there's a lot of characters that I think I liked and a lot that I kind of connected with, and a lot kind of the same way. A lot of it has to do with, I think, just how well written and all the show was, how you had such character development over seasons. I mean, I think probably my favorite character changed a little bit as I watched the show. I think everyone starts off with Ted, especially in season 1, him just being so positive, and this is kind of just force of positivity and belief and making you feel good. And I think he's still up there pretty high for me, especially, I mean, as Shane said, I did dress as Coach Lasso for Halloween. I think you saw, just the changes in Jamie over the years, from kind of like prima donna young star who didn't need any help, and how he kind of changed in his the lessons he learned over the years and how he changed. But I think probably kind of spoiled a little bit with my attire today, but my favorite has always just kind of been, I've always liked Roy Kent. Not probably necessarily any big reason, I mean, I think, you did see some character change in him. Some of it kind of backslid a little bit, and then he also by the end was, trying to change that, almost a little bit like the Grinch. He was a very gruff exterior throughout most of it, but you could see that, once you got through some of that, he really did care about people, the way he just his relationship, and even just the way he kind of, took Jamie under his wing, a little bit, and just kind of saw him progress into what will, I assume, be, not that we may or may not ever see, a good coach. But I think the humor of his character, just the gruffness and inappropriateness of it sometimes, but also just seeing that other side of him with his niece. So it's just seeing all the different sides of Roy Kent. I think were some of the funnier moments of the show, but also some moments where you had some good heart and good character development as well. So I'm gonna go with Roy Kent.
Amazing thing about Phoebe. Phoebe was originally only supposed to be a one episode character. I don't know the little girl's name, but the little girl, when she came in and did the one episode, I mean, benefits of doing your first scene and first episode with one of the writers of the show. She's so impressed Brett Goldstein that he went to them and said, we have to make her a bigger character on the show. We have to bring her back. And then I think Phoebe had some really, Christmas episode is one of my favorite ones, and I really enjoy what Phoebe did in the Christmas episode. Like she was an awesome side character. And like we were talking to Brian yesterday about Roy Kent a little bit, and I enjoy the fact that Roy Kent doesn't change who he is over 3 seasons, but you can tell that he has changed. He's still the same person at the beginning of the show as he is at the end of the show. He's still an angry, says the F word all the time guy, but you can definitely feel the difference in the way he is. But like after we got off last night, I was thinking back about all of our conversations and whatnot. I was like, that's really something that I think is great storytelling for the show, for his character, is like they don't make him change. He doesn't change. He's still angry. He's still bitter. He still curses all the time. But what are you with me on that, Mayor? You don't agree?
I think he does change. I don't think he changes like drastically like some others, but I think that he definitely has, like, the Roy at the end of the show would never do the stuff that Roy at the beginning of the show does. Like, and I think that's one of the things that they even say in, what is that, the first, or I think it's the first episode, where they're like, that's him, that's the domino, we need to fall. And he's gonna hate us when we turn him, or something along those lines, or they say he's gonna hate us when we get him to love us, or something along those lines. And I think Ted's influence changes aspects of Roy, but I think for the most part he might be the same, but he definitely has changed. And he's willing to talk about stuff that he wouldn't have done at the beginning of the show.
When I'm saying that, like, when you look at Jamie in episode 1 and the way Jamie acts and the way he behaves, and then you look at how different he is by the end of the show, there's a huge change in how the character acts. When you look at Roy, like, Roy still, I mean, all of season 3, he's yelling and cursing at Jamie, but you know it's coming from a different place. So Roy is still the same Roy, but I agree that his character evolves, and we see a change in
Maybe
the subtext.
or kind of why he does things, not the way he does them, a little bit.
Yeah, okay, that's a good way to word it. Like, yeah, like he's still the same. He doesn't compromise who he is as Roy, but he does approach things in a different yet still Roy Kent style way. Whereas Jamie from season 1 to season 3 approaches things differently, and you can tell that he's different. It would be like Sam. Sam's a great character on the show. I'm not in any way trying to badmouth him in any way, but he is the exact same person at the start of the show as he is at the end of the show. He has a lot of great stuff that he does, and he has a great personality, but he doesn't really change who he is at all. I feel like Sam in episode 1 and Sam in the last episode is the same guy. Like, I know a lot of, shit happens to him, stuff happens, but I don't feel like it really changes his character. Whereas, like, Roy is still the same guy, but we've seen that he has changed. I guess, man, I don't even know if I make any sense.
I think I know. I think I kind of understand what you're trying to get at.
All right, Shane.
All
Question number 4.
Pat, we're about to go deep. We're gonna go real deep into your psyche. We're gonna try to figure this out. Ted Lasso is an amazing show, and it's an amazing show for different reasons for different people. What does Ted Lasso mean to you, and why do you love it so much?
Gotcha. And I think I kind of touched on this a little bit when kind of going through some of my favorite lines. I think for me, and it kind of changed a little bit throughout the seasons because the show itself kind of did a little bit, but it came out, season one. In fact, before season one, I remember watching TV and seeing the Jason Sudeikis commercials for soccer on NBC Sports, thinking it was funny back, and there's me show. I was like, oh, okay, it's interesting. We'll give it a try, and really expected it to just be that kind of fish out of water and comedy type show, and I went in solely just for that. Like I was like, oh, I like him, I'll watch it for that. What was pleasantly surprised was season one. Obviously it hit during COVID, which was a weird time for everybody.
Absolutely.
And I think just the way that season one kind of was kind of this perfect thing that a lot of people probably needed. It's so much with positivity and hope and belief and treating people, in that sort of Ted Lasso way. There's so many people that were probably, scared or depressed or down or, I'm stuck at home, I'm not working, everyone's way things are these years, very different sides of things. And just to have that positivity put out in the world, I think was a good message. And also said, don't, like I said earlier, don't really dwell on too much, but try and just live in the present. We can't change a whole lot, try and live in the present, make every day what you can and get the most out of it. But then as the series went on, a lot of people got into it because of that. Oh, it's fun. It's, it's not just about soccer, but it's funny and it's got a good message. They weren't afraid to touch on other subjects that aren't necessarily happy and feel good. I mean, the whole, touching on, mental health, which is a big issue for a lot of people, especially in the last, few years from what people have gone through. I think it still kind of gives that same sort of message, and that you need to take care of yourself. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to need to get help. But the thing that kind of helps people along with that is also just, not trying to let things that you can't necessarily control take over your life. And I think that was, try not to, the one quote about, be curious, not judgmental, don't judge people, don't judge yourself, it's good to have belief and hope in things, that positive attitude for yourself and, others, try and treat others with a good way, try and make this world a little bit better than you left it the day before. So I think, it's, as we've talked about, there's been some very good writing. It's one of the few shows that I remember so much kind of character development with all the different characters. It has humor, it has drama, it has, emotional stuff, relationships, soccer. It had so many different aspects, but I think they were all done, really pretty well. And it had a lot of characters. It was hard to pick just one character is my favorite. I liked a lot of the characters, each one for their own different reasons. But I
while
think
we're on that topic, let's address this real quick. I can't lie. Kind of was expecting, because of your job, was kind of expecting May to be your favorite character.
That's true. And you know what? When I was thinking characters, I didn't even think. I was thinking, some of the big main ones, and the people on the club, and
Sure.
but yes, she was
May
good.
is so underrated because May just had so many good one-liners, like when she was dropping off beers and like would just make a comment, or when she was serving the three kids. Like May is a very underrated character on the show. I really enjoy her.
And that's the thing. There are so many. I mean, there are so many characters outside of just the main people. I mean, even like Higgins or any. I mean, there's so many different people that kind of come in and out that could be your favorites for many different reasons. I think that is one of the reasons I did enjoy the show so much. Because I would say that this show kind of has gotten me into probably a little bit better with soccer. I don't know, watch World Cup, I've never gotten into much of that, and not to cross shows, but that and Welcome to Wrexham too kind of worked hand in hand for me. I went in not going in for the soccer aspect, but getting drawn into it almost a little bit like Ted. I mean, he knows nothing about soccer, but by the end, he knows what offsides is. So you learn the game while you also learn about life.
Football in America is in a great place right now because a lot of people got introduced to football with Ted Lasso. Then a lot of people watched Welcome to Wrexham because of Ryan Reynolds, and that got a lot more people involved in football. And now we have Lionel Messi, literally probably the greatest person to ever play the game, maybe next to Beckham, now playing in the United States where people like, I will be going to watch MLS matches for clubs I don't give a shit about because I want to see, like, I got to see Jordan play in '98 like 3 different times, and like that's something that like I hold dear to my heart, that I was in the same building as Michael Jordan. Same thing with Messi, man. Like I don't care about Inter Miami, I don't care about the teams he's going to play against, but to go see him play live is something I'm really excited about with the sport of soccer in America right now.
Nice, yeah. So I think there was a lot of different things that got me into the show and made me enjoy it, and I felt like I came out of it with a better appreciation of soccer or football, and just a better perspective on life, really.
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, anything as we wrap up?
Been a pleasure, sir. Thank you for joining us.
You give
you're
a
welcome.
pat. You kicking Pat off with a yellow or a red?
We'll do a yellow card for him.
Yellow card for Pat. All right, Pat, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us to talk about the show.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. Good to see you. Have a good day.
See you, sir.
And Pat leaves the pitch with that yellow card given by Jason. So we are going to bring on our female superstar, the Mia Hamm of this episode. Jason, please introduce who we have.
We have Miss Annette Reynolds.
Hello. Substitution of the show. How you doing, Annette?
Great. How are you guys?
We're
Doing good. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Enjoy the shirt you've got on there. It's a very nice kit.
Thank you.
I've heard rumors that it's custom.
It is. So it has my name on it and my favorite number. Hold on. Maybe you can see it.
You can see the name.
Only 17. 17. Oh, that's totally wrong. My fault.
Yeah. Great song though. Great side note.
Not a great song.
But yes, I like my custom shirt. Thank you.
Very nice. It's very beautiful. Mr. Mayor, let's start with question number 1, good sir.
So, Miss Reynolds, we've been asking all of our guests certain questions when it comes to Ted Lasso. So the numero uno that I am going to ask you today is, there are a lot of memorable quotes and lines from the 3 seasons of Ted Lasso. Which one stands out the most to you?
So my favorite quote, Roy says it, and it's, "Don't you dare settle for fine." And he says it to Rebecca after she goes on a date, and she's like, he was fine. It was fine, and he just kind of gave that, like, "Don't you dare settle for fine," which I thought was a really good advice,
Absolutely phenomenal moment.
Yeah.
Like, just a really, like, that whole double date scene is really good. And then the scene you're talking about, like, just Roy's attitude about it. Like, he's not even trying, like, he's not trying to sugarcoat it. He's not trying to be friendly about it. He's literally just being like, you fucking deserve better than that guy. And like, it comes across in just that one line, like what he really means by "don't settle for fine." And like, yeah, that's a great sequence, and a line that nobody else has picked before you. So that's very awesome.
Yay. I like to be unique.
You did well there. Let's see. Question number 2. There's a lot of memorable scenes in this show. There's a lot of scenes that stand out. There's a lot of scenes that are quoted. But of all of those scenes, which one's the most memorable scene to you?
Okay, so this one's really hard because there are a lot of just really good moments.
Absolutely.
Just yeah, so many good moments. But the one I picked was Nate had gone to West Ham, the other team, and he had talked shit during a press conference or whatever. And they were interviewing Ted Lasso for like comments with the reporters, and they were like, what do you think about what Nate said? And what I really like is that he could have talked shit, but he didn't. He decided to make jokes at his own expense.
How dumb are you?
Yeah, exactly. How dumb are you? And so he like just made jokes at his own expense, and like he turned it into a lighthearted positive thing instead of he could have taken, an uglier route and talk shit and just been really negative. But he just kind of showed that like he has love for Nate, even though, Nate might not be in a good place right now. And so I thought that was a really beautiful moment and a beautiful life lesson to when you're baited to not say the bad thing, not say take the shitty route.
And
Well,
Keely,
and I think
Keely's
what's great-
texting. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say what's great about that, and for me, on particular that scene, is like Rebecca. It literally told him right before he goes out there, like, become a lion.
Yeah.
And he's a panda bear. We all know this. And like,
Mhm.
it's just that matter of she wants him to go on that ferocious attack and to go after Nate. And even though she blatantly tells him to do it, he just, nope, not going to do it because
Yeah.
that's not me.
The
So
great follow-up with that moment you're talking about is when Keely texts her and she says, good job letting Ted be Ted.
Yeah. Way to
Where
let
it-
Ted be Ted. Yeah.
Yeah, where
Mhm.
it's like, that's not what she wanted, but then you see that look on Rebecca's face where because of Keely's text, she realizes that Ted did the right thing by not listening to her.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was
is
just
great
such a good
sequence.
moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
so leads us to question number 3.
Number 3.
Who is your favorite character on the show and why?
So I love Rebecca. I absolutely love her. She's just like this strong, dominant force. But she's also like a fully 3-dimensional character. Like you see that she's going through stuff. She's struggling. She still has, she's like a fully realized character with dimension, but I just really like her positivity and how she gets through everything.
So there's a lot of shit with Rebecca throughout the 3 seasons. What's like your favorite Rebecca moment, or like what is the moment for you that defines Rebecca on the show? Jason, think about your answer because I have an answer that I want to give after Annette.
So the one that really sticks out is I love for her character the whole like guy on the boat.
God damn
When
it,
that
that was what I was gonna say. Never
when
mind,
that
Jason. You don't need to think of anything.
when that happens, I'm just like finally she has like a win for her, and like you know what I mean. I was just really happy for her in that moment with the boat thing, to just kind of like let go of all her gobbledygook, if you will. And
Well, that's why that scene is so amazing and phenomenal, because she just gets to be a girl. She's not Rebecca in that moment. She's on a boat with a dude. She never finds out his name, and he doesn't know who she is. Or like hypothetically,
right.
like, he
Yeah.
probably doesn't know who she is. But it's just a guy and a girl enjoying time together, like hanging out, getting to know each other. There's no stigma. There's no, oh my God, she's a million billionaire, whatever she is. He's some
Sure.
dude on a boat. She has no idea what his job occupation is, but like the fact that they're able to connect and just have a conversation and laugh and be fun and friendly and goofy with each other with nothing at stake. And then the way that they leave it, and obviously everything comes full circle, but like that
Sure.
sequence and scene in the Amsterdam episode was just an amazing moment for her character, in my opinion, just getting to be not Rebecca Welton for a night.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also love her relationship with Keely. Like those two girls and their friendship, that's kind of a thread throughout. When normally, right, they usually write girls as competing with each other and as kind of like battling each other. It was cool to see that they wrote the women as really close friends
And
and
I mean, even like
support
even in
systems.
season 2 when Shandy, or was that season 3? No, season 2 was Shandy. Even whenever Shandy came around, like
Shandy's the beginning of season 3, I believe.
okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so
Yeah,
even when
yeah.
Shandy came around, like they weren't competing, even though they weren't getting along. Like she still loved her friend, she just realized her friend was fucking up her business. So like I still, even though I didn't like Shandy's character at all, I felt like they did a good job of writing it in a way where, like you said, it's not the normal girls competing over shit and like stuff. Like there was no real like the only animosity between them was the fact that like they didn't see eye to eye on their work relationship. So
Sure.
I really felt like it was a great thing over 3 seasons that they never had that type of female dynamic like you were talking about. Like
Yeah.
I can't think of a negative female, and even any of the negative, like Kiwi's assistant in season 3, Barbara,
Yeah.
yeah, like
The snow
even
globe
the snow
gal.
globe chick, yeah, like
Yeah. Mhm.
even the headbutting that started off at the beginning of season 3 still kind of fleshed itself out in a non-negative way. So like they did a really good job of female writing on there. Jason,
I
do you
agree.
have a Rebecca character moment?
Um, I absolutely adore her at the end of the first season moment with Ted, where she comes clean and um and just him responding the way that he does.
I forgive you.
I
forgive you.
Yeah. The I forgive you and the divorce is hard and it changes things. And she and just her immediate relief in the fact that like she hugs him because she's so relieved that he's willing to be that person for her. And be strong when she was probably at her weakest at that moment, in my opinion, anyway, because of the fact that, I mean, the weakest that we see her on the show, I think that's probably her weakest moment, but it's still, she's rebounding very well. But yeah, I totally agree. Like they don't write any of the women. The only women that the Shanty character was kind of annoying, but I mean, like that's her purpose. That was the whole reason they wrote her the way that they did, was for her to be the annoying person. It wasn't because she was a woman. It was just because of the fact that she was that character. That character was the annoying one. And so yeah, most of the female characters in the show are very real for the most part, it seems. And so even though I don't care for her a whole lot, but like Michelle is a very real character too. And shit happens when you go through what Ted and her go through, and yeah, so like it's just one of those things that I think you guys are right on point with it, that they definitely wrote women in a way that makes you don't look down on any of them, essentially. So whereas, like you said, most of the time they find characters on both sides, whether it's men or women, to make you look down on these characters. And the only one you really look down on in the whole series, for me anyway, is Rupert. So like everybody else is pretty much like, yeah, everybody else I really enjoy. So
absolutely. What was that?
I said you love to hate him anyway, so in the show.
Especially since he was in charge of West Ham. That was the hardest part about season 3. But they could have picked any other club to be the bad guy, and they had to pick my club. Yeah, all right. All right, let us go all the way deep. This one's for all the marbles. This one is, we're peeling back all the onion layers to see what this show means to you, Annette. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people. We've gotten a lot of different responses about why they connected with the show and what it meant to them. But I am curious about you. What does Ted Lasso mean to you as a show?
So what I love about this show the most is that it deals with the hard topics of life. Like it's not like sugarcoating or glazing over anything, but it's kind of just showing a mature way to deal with the really hard stuff. And they actually go there with some dark content, like really just deep, dark. I mean, there's suicide, there's death, there's homosexuality, there's like all these hard things, divorce, the things that we deal with in life that are just hard. And then it just shows everybody being super real with each other. And it's kind of saying that like mental health is important, and going to therapy is important to work on your stuff when you're going through things. And even the Diamond Dogs, where the guys get together and they talk about what's going on in their lives and what's challenging for them, so that they can have that support system. And I really love that they're addressing mental health and all the challenges of life in a real way. They're not just sugarcoating it.
Yeah, it definitely feels better than like, and don't get me wrong, I love these shows. We grew up watching them, but like Saved by the Bell, Fresh Prince, like all these shows that all these ones that are like real slapstick comedies, who all of a sudden have that episode where it's like, or Boy Meets World, or even the Wonder Years, they have that episode where it's like, we're gonna hit you hard for an entire episode, and you're gonna not know how to feel about it at all.
The Saved by the Bell drugs episode.
Oh my God, man! Like there's so many though, right? Because like you had the Jesse doing caffeine pills. You had Will when his dad didn't, like, he went through that whole like, why didn't my dad want me kind of moment. Like you always have all these hard things, and you're just like, I don't know how to feel. Whereas like, I don't know, with Ted Lasso, they wove it in comedy and hard hitting stuff to almost to a masterful degree, to the point where like you can feel those and it's okay, and it doesn't feel awkward. It feels like you're going through the motions properly, to help you process your own crap that you're going through too. So
they literally perfectly set up everything for the empathy to be there when it needed to be.
Yeah.
Like Ted Lasso's first panic attack is like episode 6 or 7 of season 1, and when it happens, you understand it. Like they planted those seeds in the episodes leading up to that. That like when it happened, you weren't like, where did this come from? Why is Ted having a panic attack? Like they had moments beforehand that set it all up, that got you to where it ended up going.
I love how supportive everyone was too. Like people understood, you know. Like I remember Rebecca came up to bat for him. The therapist was there. Like he actually reached out and asked for help, which is so important, you know, because I think sometimes there's a stigma to reaching for help, to asking your friends for help, to just reaching out to the people in your lives who do care about you and want the best for you. So I love how vulnerable and real and raw it is. And sometimes there is no good answer, you know. Sometimes you just have to process and just go through it, and it's not all buttoned up with a pretty bow. Like sometimes just it's hard, and that is what it is.
Absolutely. Well, you got anything else to add before things get wrapped up?
No, just thanks for having me, and I really love the show.
Yeah, that's why we asked you to come on and be our female voice on the show.
Love it.
Well, Jason, are we yellow carding or red carding Annette?
She's staying on the pitch. We got some extra time.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna go into some extra time. Okay, all right. So we're not kicking Annette off yet. We're gonna take a quick break, commercial timeout, and then we will be right back with extra time, where Jason and I will answer the 4 questions.
Love it.
And here we are in extra time. We went ahead and asked Annette to stick around with us so that we had somebody to help ask the questions between Jason and I. So Miss Annette, please take off question number 1 for Jason.
Okay, Jason. So there are a lot of memorable quotes and lines from the series. Which one stands out the most to you?
Roy Kent saying, "I hate what you fucking done to me." Do you guys remember that?
When does he say this? And who
So
does he say it to?
they're doing wordplay, and they're going back and forth, and it's quick-witted and everything else. And at one point he throws in like oh my gosh, Beard, they're addressing the team, and it's Beard, Coach Lasso, and him. And like Beard they're making their little pun comments constantly, and then Roy answers one of the questions. And I can't remember what it is, but it's literally the next thing he said, where he answers it the way that they want him to answer it, and then he goes, "I fucking hate what you've done to me," and it's so perfect for me for this show, just because of the simple fact that, like, I can't remember if I was talking with you, Annette, or if it was when Pat was on earlier, but it was that moment where, like, they literally say in the first episode that they need Roy to be the first domino to fall, and they need him to, he's gonna hate it when we get him to love us, or something along those lines, is what they say in like the first episode, or maybe I thought it was the first, might have been the second episode. But then the fact that he responds in that manner, the way, as soon as he realizes like they have got their claws in, they've made that impression on him. And yeah, that's my quote that I love from the show. And it's just because it's kind of a full circle moment for me. So what are you looking up?
I was trying to find it, but I quickly cannot find where that quote is from. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I just can't remember because yes, he makes some type of pun, and then both Beard and Lasso look at him, and that's when he says the line that you just said. And it bothers me that I don't know where it's from. All right, I'm sure I'll find it later. All right, man. So there are a lot of memorable scenes in this show. There is a lot of great content. There's a lot of great moments. But which one stands out to you the most as your favorite?
And Shane, I if I steal this from you, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But it is totally the Beard and Nate moment.
No.
That's my favorite part of when Beard goes to visit Nate and asks him to come back.
Okay.
And he does the headbutt, but he's just holding it close and everything else. And he tells the story of why Ted means so much to him. That's heck. I'm almost tearing up just talking about it now. Like, it's just that whole, like, don't give up on people, no matter how much they've screwed up, no matter how many times they screw you over. You don't give up on people. And always give that extra shot, that extra chance. So that's why. But yeah, that's my favorite scene in the entire show. So
can my narcissism come out for a moment?
It always does anyway. You never ask for permission to give it anyway. So what were you gonna say?
So earlier in the episode, we had a conversation where I brought up the text that you sent me after you first started watching the show, where you texted me and said, "Obviously, I see myself as Ted Lasso on this show, and you are my Coach Beard." And there was never a moment. I'm sorry, how do I word this? There was never a doubt of that in my mind after you said that to me, but it was 100% solidified in that scene that you're talking about, because, I mean, the people that know me, that have been around for a long time, know that I fucked up a lot throughout the course of our friendship. And like a lot of the people that I was friends with 20 years ago, I'm not friends with anymore because of how I acted and how I treated people back then, in my Jamie Tart phase. But
Season 1.
When Beard tells that story, obviously when I was watching it, all I could think about was the number of times in my life that I have had to ask you and or your wife for apologies for really dumb shit that I've done throughout the course of our friendship. And so hearing Beard tell the story about how he fucked up a lot, and how he's only where he is in life because Ted gave him a chance and gave him a job, that really hit close to home with me also. Just all the stuff that you and Letha have done for me, especially over the course of the last year with all the shit I went through. Like, you guys have just really been there for me. And so when Beard was telling his story about how important Ted is to him in his life, I saw that as me talking to you, or me telling the story about how I feel about you. So the fact that that's your favorite scene is really cool with me because, well, I consider that to be me talking about you.
Oh,
Well, thanks.
that's
So,
really sweet.
Oh, we got all sappy for a moment. there.
Aw, I love it. That's
whatever.
really sweet.
Anyway, Annette, please ask him question 3 so
Oh,
I can
yes.
get out of this.
So, of all the amazing cast in Ted Lasso, who is your favorite character and why?
You know, a lot of people say that they struggle with this, that they were like, oh, you know, that character, this character. Higgins is by far my favorite person on the
Oh, wow. Okay.
and he's like Ted Lasso 15, 20 years later. He's super positive in everything he's doing. He's trying to not ruffle feathers, even at the beginning where he knows he screwed up with Rupert and covering up for Rupert. I feel like Rebecca kept him just to like fuck with him. Like, and that was the whole reason she was keeping him around at first. But then I love it in the episode where she's like, well, can they trace this back to us? Why didn't you use a burner phone or what? And something, he's like, I'm not a spy. Like, you know why? Because I see myself in Higgins. Like, I totally can see his reaction to especially something along that ridiculousness. Like, I might do something stupid, like do that for Rebecca, but I would have the exact same reaction if she was like, why didn't you like make sure this couldn't come back on us? And it's like, because I'm yeah, that's not my thing. But I love Higgins, his family life, the fact that he's just
I was gonna say that's what I was about to deep dive on this with you if you didn't bring it up. Like the one character on the show that has a solid family life, a solid wife relationship, and children, and it's the character that you relate to the most, or I don't know if you relate to him the most, but your favorite character. Like I definitely see that for you. I didn't see it until you said it, but as soon as you did,
and all the times where he chimes in with the Diamond Dogs, and he always has like I always appreciate him having that. Like everybody's like, oh no, that's the right answer because it's Higgins. But yeah, I just really enjoy that. And then like him trying to, I mean, I'm a nerd when it comes to certain things. And one of the things that drives me nuts is like that I haven't gotten my kids to be nerds about the things that I want them to be nerds about. And so like that moment where he takes like the kit guy, I can't remember his name, the new kid guy to Amsterdam, and he takes him to the jazz club, and he's like, I'm getting him, we're popping his cherry tonight, and I'm taking him to the red light district, and I'm just like, this can't be what I'm thinking this is. And then it ends up not being at all what I thought it was gonna be, which I was like, oh, thank goodness, because that would be really awkward to be like, here's this 50-year-old man taking an 18-year-old to like to a harem and being like, here you go, I'll pay for it. Like, it was very awkward until they showed what was going on. I was like, oh, thank goodness. And it just made me happy about that whole scenario. So
Will.
But yeah.
His name is Will.
What?
His name is Will.
You're right. So but yeah, so Higgins is my favorite because he's just so he's what I would like to be when I get his age. So
he's a funny guy. He's got a lot of good one-liners.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Solid family and musically inclined. I definitely put that on you.
So yeah, that's definitely where my favorite character is. So
all right, bro.
Although there are so many, it wasn't hard for me to pick one.
Let's get deep. Let's find out. Let's get inside that brain of yours. Please tell me what the series Ted Lasso means to you.
So a lot of people have touched on it. Being able to like see the best in people, to be able to see. While I love season 1, I feel like season 2 is a step down, and then season 3 is like a step back up, but not up on the level of season 1 for me personally. But And it's just the happiness overall of what's going on. I've talked about it many times on this show. I don't care for negative things for the most part. I try not to have those in my life. I don't mind a negative movie every now and then or something along those lines, because that's a 2-hour stint of time. Whereas like if I have like a negative television show, do I want to watch 10 years of like down and depressing crap over and over again? And that's the main reason why. And the two that pop into my head all the time, because they're popular, or at least were, Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, are both shows that I just couldn't get into because there was just so much down in those shows that I just was like, I just want some light, man. Like, and again, you can give me a movie that's down, but at least that's only a 2-hour stint. I don't need to spend half a year watching something and then be a complete downer. Although Sons of Anarchy is the one that I ended up watching all the way through, even though that's kind of a downer for most of that. But yeah, Ted Lasso is just a bright light. I think that there were some times where I would have preferred, like, they could have dialed back on some stuff overall. But I just like it sometimes seemed like they were trying too hard to do like some social justice commentary stuff.
Okay.
And maybe I was just looking at it from a different light, but it didn't. That's the great thing about the show, is that it still doesn't deter me from watching it. It was never a turn off. It was just like I wish that would have been a little bit different in this show. They could have dialed that back or something along those lines. But one of the probably the most amazing aspect of this show is the fact that all three of us enjoy Friends. Like, you know, we grew up watching that show. One of my issues with Friends is the fact that there's no continuity in that show at all. So like so one of the things that I really enjoyed when How I Met Your Mother came on was that they kept having those inside jokes and things that were interwoven for seasons. And you know, most of us have touched on it at some point while talking about the show, but just like how many little tiny nuggets, whether they did it intentionally or not, that they wrote, like Shane said, they did some intelligent writing, and they kept being able to pull back and dialing back to like the first season or the second season or something earlier in the season when they were wrapping everything up at the end of season 3. But yeah, so I thought it was really cool to have that continuity, and we don't get that enough. Because so many people try to retcon and do all these other things, that when somebody does it as well as they're doing it with Ted Lasso, it's really noticed, especially from I won't say I'm a storyteller anymore, but considering the fact that we used to make independent film and we used to make stories like that and try to interweave them and everything else, to have somebody who cares enough that they're paying attention to that. Because like how many people are noticing? I mean, some people are going to notice, but most of the people we know who talk to are big movie fans anyway. But like the book that Jamie opens up at the end of the season and pulls out the belief piece is the book that Ted gave him in the first season that he threw away too. So I like, there's that moment of like, did Jamie go back? Did he dumpster dive? Did Ted grab it out of the trash and just put it right back into his locker?
Or did Jamie actually buy himself a new copy?
Yeah, good point. Like maybe he was like, oh crap, I should have done that. But yeah, so I really appreciate the fact that they could do callbacks themselves and bounce back to the original, or to the first season, second season, beginning of these third season. So it's a really cool idea. So
absolutely,
I wish more, and I wish more TV shows did it, like, because from an and well, I would love to watch Ted Lasso for 6 or 7 seasons probably. And if they make a spinoff, I'll probably watch it, most likely watch it, unless it annoys me to the point where I just don't feel like watching it anymore. But I have to say, I really appreciate the somewhat British aspect of I'm making 3 seasons. I'm not going any further. This is the story I want to tell. This is how long it's going to take me to tell it. I'm not like I appreciate Jason Sudeikis so much more for having that kind of stance compared to pulling the J.J. Abrams, where it was like, we're going to flash some more money at you. You want to do 2 more seasons, right? And it's like, no. He didn't he say 3 from the get-go?
Yep.
I want to say, like, yeah, from the very first time I ever heard him talk about seasons, I want to say that we heard something along the lines of like, this is a 3-season show or something like that.
I think the first time I remember being talked about was after season 1 wrapped up, and they were like, "Oh,
Yes.
you're obviously going to do a second season, obviously." And he's like, "Well, we've got seasons 2 and 3 planned out, and that's all I plan on doing." And of course, 4 years ago when he said that, we were like, "Please decide to do more." But yeah, no, I agree. I'm happy that he stopped at 3. I like what they did with it.
So flipping it over to you, Shane. There are a
Okay,
lot of memorable. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't
What
like
were you
talking very much, so I'm probably gonna be very quiet and short with my answers.
Annette, do you want 1 and 3 or do you want 2 and 4?
Whichever, however you want to do it.
There are a lot of memorable quotes, Shane, and
Okay.
lines from the series. Which one stands out the most to you?
So it's a really long one, so I had to write it out so that I could remember it because it's long. So it's funny to think about the things in your life that can make you cry just knowing that they existed, can then become the same thing that makes you cry knowing that they're now gone. I think those things come into our lives to help us get from one place to a better one. And it's kind of just personal to me. It hits me really close to home with a lot of the shit that I've gone on since the show started. And, it's tough to accept and tough to deal with that, the things that used to make you happy make you really sad and upset now. And you just gotta, keep going forward and, just you have to have that mentality that something better. It's kind of the same. It's a intelligent way of saying everything happens for a reason. The best is yet to come. Something better is out there. So just and the fact that he's talking about when the dog got killed, when he tells that story, is just always kind of, it's one of those sad moments that you were talking about where, like, not the entire show isn't comedy, but they found ways to have comedy in spite of tragedy. So the fact that he tells that story about adopting the dog and then what happens with the dog and then like that whole process that leads to that quote, just like, I don't know, it's one of those things that as far as the show goes, it hits me really personally when he said it.
Awesome. Annette?
That's a good quote. So of all the scenes, is there a memorable scene from the show that stands out to you?
No. I had one when we first came up for this episode and I first came up with the questions, I thought I knew what this answer was going to be. Anybody who knows me won't be surprised by what's going to actually end up being my second episode scene, because I'll explain what I thought my idea was after I explain what the real one is. My favorite scene in the entire series of all 3 seasons is in season 3. It's the episode where Sam's dad comes to visit, and at the beginning of that episode, his restaurant gets destroyed. So he's hanging out with his dad, and he asks his dad if he wants to go see the restaurant, even though it's, destroyed. And they show up, and the entire team is there rebuilding the restaurant for Sam. Then his dad offers to cook for him. They have a big family dinner. Anybody that knows me knows that I shit like Firefly. Any show that has an eclectic group of people being brought together for a greater purpose is a story. It is a way to get me invested in the story. That's one of the things I enjoy about Ted Lasso is you have a bunch of different people from a bunch of different backgrounds dealing with a lot of different shit in their lives that all make a family. Working in the service industry, I've had a lot of families like that. I've had people that I spent holidays with instead of spending holidays with my family. So seeing all of those guys come together and have dinner together when Sam's dad cooks for them, The comment that I don't remember the black chick's name, but she talks about how she's gonna replace the mirrors. That's the one thing that they haven't gotten set up yet. And Sam tells her no, like let's leave the mirrors the way they are. It's a reminder that not everything has to be perfect. That's my favorite scene of the show, and the scene that I originally thought was going to be my answer, which won't be a surprise to anybody because it's a very similar concept and moment, is in season 2, the Christmas episode where Higgins invites everybody over to his house and way more players than ever before show up. They talk about how like they sometimes have two or three players that show up for this. The fact that a large majority of the team shows up and you've just got all these different characters bringing their own cultures together, and then they have dinner together, and Higgins gives the toast about to the family you're born with and the family you make along the way. Both of those scenes are kind of the same concept to me. It's just people coming together to be a family. So the Christmas one was originally, when I came up with the question, was what I thought my answer was going to be, but the more I thought about it, I think it is overtaken by Sam and his dad and that whole concept.
So who is your favorite character on the show and why?
Jamie Tart. Jamie Tart. Jamie Tart. I don't even know if I'm doing the song right. I really don't know the fucking song. Man.
Tart do.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So whatever.
Baby Shark.
Yep. Baby Shark.
Man, how you take a character that I fucking hated with an undying passion for the first 10 episodes of this show. I mean, even longer than that. I hated him for like halfway through season 2. Like literally the moment when he punches his dad and when Roy gives him a hug was literally the moment where I went, wait a minute. Do I not hate Jamie Tart? Wait, what? Why do I feel empathy for him? Why do I agree that Roy is hugging it? Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? This is Jamie fucking Tart. I hate him. But why do I not hate him anymore? And I don't remember a couple of episodes. I mean, I remember it happened a couple of episodes. I don't remember what episode it was on, but Jason had to make the smart-ass comment when I made a comment about hating Jamie Tart, and Jason held the mirror up to my face that I hated Jamie Tart because I saw a lot of my younger self in Jamie Tart. So, yeah. Jamie Tart's story arc throughout all 3 seasons is probably some of the best storytelling I've ever seen. It literally emotionally invested me in hating somebody and got me to change my opinion on him to the point where in season 3, I literally love everything he does. I love his bromance with Roy Kent. I love the scene where he goes and apologizes to Keeley. As awkward and weird as Mom City is when he goes and visits his mom, like I still, because as awkward as it was seeing his childhood home, that's the same episode where they tried to convince, or they bamboozled us into thinking that his father had passed away. So of course I'm getting emotionally invested in how the fuck is Jamie going to react to this when he finds out his dad's dead. And then of course at the end you find out that he's just in the rehab facility. Thank you. But yeah, so I never, when the show started, would have ever thought that I would like Jamie Tart. Literally every moment he was on screen in season 1, I hated him. I literally was upset when I found, like, because he's on Man City at the end of season 1, so I literally was like, thank God he's not coming back for season 2. He's gone. And, of course they found a way to bring him back. And it sucks because, like, when I go and rewatch season 2, the scene between Jamie and Ted at the bar, the first time I saw it, I was like, no, Ted, tell him to fuck off. Like, don't even, okay, good, you didn't let him, like, yeah, okay. But then I go back and rewatch it now, and I'm like, man, they were just setting me up. They were just putting that first seed down that Jamie's not as bad as you think he is, Shane, and he's going to have a redemption arc. And they won me over. So Jamie Tart is my favorite character on the show.
I like how you even had to pause to I'm gonna say it again.
Yeah, he is. And man, like, it's just it's tough, but it's a testament to their storytelling and the writers on that show that again, like who knows if they ever were committed to three. Like I know they said they wanted to do 3 seasons, but I don't know if Apple originally told them yes, we're going to do all 3 of them, or if we had ever only gotten 1 season of Ted Lasso, like Ted Lasso would have been my favorite character.
Absolutely.
Like flat out, like I didn't have the emotional investment in any of the other characters. But as we talked earlier on the episode, like it's a show called Ted Lasso. The first season shows you Ted Lasso and introduces you to the characters around him. And again, planting the seed of seasons 2 and 3 are showing you how, like, there's other people in this world and their lives are being enriched because of Ted Lasso. And he's not the main character anymore. It's literally an ensemble show at that point.
Mm-hmm. So Shane, what does Ted Lasso mean to you?
Ted Lasso means fame. Good.
I said, didn't you just say it? You were just talking about it. I'm just kidding. Keep going.
I thought I'd ask anyways.
Jason, you're going to love this. Ted Lasso means family. In the same way that Dom protects his family in the Fast and the Furious franchise, Ted Lasso is no family. I literally thought you were about to go to turn yourself off of the. I mean, like it's a corny cheesy, it's a corny cheesy answer, but it's what I mean, and it goes back to that quote that Higgins said about to the family you're born with and the family you make along the way. Like this journey through 3 seasons of Ted Lasso brought us into the Richmond family. We came in as Ted Lasso, the fish out of water story. We got acclimated to the characters. We dove deep into all of the side characters. Like I said, it's an ensemble show that shows you that there are a lot of people who are very different and believe in different things. But as long as you support each other for just being a fucking human being and being a person, like that's all that matters. People's religious beliefs don't matter. People's sexual orientation doesn't matter. Like, just fucking be nice to people, treat them well, go out of your way to help your own fucking human being. Like, just be a good fucking person is what the whole show is about. And you're rewarded with a family.
And also, you never know what someone's going through. You just never know what someone's
fact.
going through.
100% fact. I know a lot of people that fucking hate the Beard episode, Beard's Night Out. And I'll admit, the first time I watched it, it wasn't my favorite episode of the show. I went on record saying it's my least favorite episode in the first 2 seasons. But every time I rewatch season 2 and I watch that episode again, I don't hate it anymore. Like, I'm still not saying like it's one of my favorite episodes, but it's an episode that shows like there's only 2 episodes in the entire series where you really see what's going on in Beard's life outside of the football pitch. Like, you see him at the bar with Ted multiple times and you get that interaction, but like we literally got to see what Beard does. And it's weird and it's not for everybody. But again, like other people's personal lives don't fucking matter. Like whatever makes somebody happy, like Beard went off that night and found something that made him happy. He was looking for a girl. He followed the signs. He got led to where she was. It was a Adventures in Babysitting episode. Like he just went and did a bunch of ridiculous shit to get him to the end game. But it's what he went through. It was his journey that, again, there's only 2 episodes that even show us what Beard does outside of Richmond. So I know a lot of people don't like it, but again, it's a great ensemble group of people that we got to see what they were going through. And there were a lot of times where we didn't know what somebody was going through until it got to that storytelling point to reveal it. So yeah, man, that was awesome. I had a question I wanted to
now you have to put on sunglasses.
I left them out in my car. I thought about it earlier. Maybe I'll wear them at some point.
Like, you know what you do? You should.
That?
I got it for you. I'll tell you after we're done.
All right, cool. Yeah, man, I thought I had, like, while I was, in my incoherent rambling a few minutes ago, I thought I had come up with something to ask you guys to end all this with, but.
Ooh, I have a question for you guys.
I talk too much. Go.
No, so I've been thinking about this and I was curious to see if you guys had reflected on it and if you guys had a take on it. But the opening sequence when Ted sits down in the stands and the seats change color and you notice that the graffiti also goes away as it's spelling out his name in the stands. And so I didn't know if the symbolism of the opening sequence meant anything to you.
Yes, absolutely. From the first time I saw it, I thought that it was Ted cleans up and makes everything around him better. Is my opinion.
Jason?
I'm gonna be honest, never put much thought into it.
Oh,
Just thought,
okay.
like, I mean, like, it was like, because I thought, I want to say most of it's like written, like washed away or whatever, or wiped away. But I thought there was some that got like replaced by others.
All the blue
Maybe
seats have graffiti on them, like writing and stuff, and anytime it changes to red, it goes to perfectly clean. But it doesn't, nothing changes. It's just either it changes red and goes away, or the blue seat stays with the graffiti on it.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I think happens too. It just cleans
Yeah.
it up. That's, I mean, that's a good reflection on what it is that he's just cleaning up the energy of wherever he is.
Yeah, I like that.
He's
right.
bringing his light and his positivity.
Yep. Because blue is usually associated with darkness and red is associated with the sun. So he's bringing his light into the darkness. I see that
Ooh,
metaphor. There we go. So the question
Oh.
that I had for you guys, say that again, Jason.
Red was rage.
It can also be rage, passion. Yeah, like a bull running towards the red flag.
Of course
It
you had to
can.
ruin
Yeah.
it. You just had to ruin it.
Because blue is technically calming from what I remember, but I might be wrong. Who knows? I like your thought process. We're gonna
No,
go with
man.
your.
No,
We're gonna go
man.
with.
Calm and anger definitely makes a lot more fucking sense for the colors.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't make
Oh
any
my
sense in
God.
the aspect of the
Doesn't.
wiping, because it
No.
was blue and then it becomes red and then it's
Yeah.
wiped clean. So
maybe we
yours,
don't
the light and the
realize.
darkness.
No, it's all about rage. The whole show is about rage. This was actually a biopic on Roy Kent, and we've been looking at it the wrong way the entire time.
It's not Ted Lasso, it's Roy Kent.
I'm really sad you didn't have a Roy shirt to wear tonight, Jason, to be honest. Like, you made a comment one time about should I get a Roy shirt, and I was like, yes. So
Well, yeah, I also was joking about getting a
puffer jacket,
Roy shirt. It was red, orange, and yellow.
red,
Yeah,
orange, yellow, tie dye.
like,
Yeah.
to get the tie-dyed one. I was joking after that episode that I wanted a tie-dye that was red, orange, and yellow because it would be a Roy shirt, and you didn't find it very funny then, but apparently I made you think that I was going to dress up in tie-dye, which I don't know if I've ever done that.
Well, it would have been a great time to do it for the first time, talking about Ted Lasso. All right, so the question that I had thought up.
Shave the beard off for you, man. Like I couldn't go just to the mustache.
Bro, I get it. Like when we came up with this episode, before I realized like the timeline of when we were gonna record it, like I was gonna buy you the puffer jacket and the visor as like a thank you for shaving into the mustache. But when I lost track of time and didn't order it in time, and then when I tried to order it, it was gonna be like next week before it showed up because the WB shop does not ship Prime way. So yeah, it was going to take too long to get here. By the time I actually tried to go buy it, I understood not shaving the mustache. So
if you would have bought me those things, I definitely would have shaved for you.
and I appreciate that. So like I only have myself to blame. So the question I have that I came up with in my tangent that I want to know you guys' opinions: did Ted and Michelle get back together?
Yes.
Annette does not seem to
No.
agree with that. Oh no,
No.
I think he did.
I think they did too.
If he would have went anywhere else, I would have said no. But he got off that plane and went to that house. And you saw, in my opinion, I also saw Michelle's relationship with him completely like turn back towards attention towards Ted, especially and because of that last game, it gives you that glimpse of she's turned. She was going through whatever she was going through. She's done with that, and she's turned her attention back to Ted. Which we could go into a whole nother tangent about why that really bugs me, but I'm it'd be a really long episode at that point. So I won't go on that tangent, but it's just, I think because of her attitude towards that last game, as well as him getting out of the taxi and going towards that house and being dropped off there, not being dropped off somewhere else where like Michelle meets him with Henry. It's him coming home, and it's the hopeless romantic in me always hoping that things will work out for people like that. And you can tell he still has a deep love for her the entire show. And that she was just going through something. So that's my take on it.
And I agree with you in your take, and I think the seeds were planted because the Paris episode, when they're at the pub, it's literally just Ted and Michelle talking and laughing and telling jokes back and forth with each other right in front of the new guy. They're having a good time. At the end of that episode, Henry runs right past the new guy, Doctor, I can't remember his name, runs right past him to get in the car, and Michelle, when she goes down there, turns back and looks up, and her and Ted have a moment through the window where they wave at each other. And then biggest one for me is that last match that you're talking about, because the framing of the scene where the family is watching it, dude starts in the chair on the right side, and every time they cut to them, he is further and further and further away from where the television is, from where Ted is, and Michelle and Henry are invested in what's going on. And then he makes the super asshole comment at the beginning where he's like, "Oh, great, 90 minutes, so it can be 0-0." Super douchebag moment there. And then I can't remember, but he says something else at the end of the match, where it was just like the fact that when Ted gets dropped off, like you said, and he walks up to her house and she's at the front door and Henry's in the yard and that dude is nowhere to be found. I also believe that him moving farther away from the television and framing was the sign that he was moving farther out of her life. So I agree with that. So it looks like Annette did not agree with us. So why do you not think that they got back together?
This is interesting. I did not think those subtle things meant that they were getting back together. I really just thought that they were learning how to co-parent in a extra loving way, and that sometimes things don't work out, and that, yeah, he was going back to the house, but he was just there to see his son. The whole motivation was always he wanted to be back with his son. So I really think it's about the son and that they're together again. But yeah, I did not think that they were rekindling anything. Like, do they even show him breaking up with this guy?
Nope.
They don't show them breaking up. They don't. I mean, yeah, I see it that she's able to co-parent and be supportive of Ted, but I guess I just didn't see them getting back together. I didn't draw that conclusion.
Damn.
I mean, it's just a different perspective. I think they leave it open on purpose. I think they leave it open to you're going to see whatever you see, and it's kind of open. So, but yeah, that is not something I saw. It's just not. I didn't see them getting back together. But
well, I see your point. I just do not choose to accept it.
That is fine. Maybe I'll watch it again and go, okay. But yeah, until there was a clear
breakup. And then what words are you going to say when you watch it the next time?
No,
there's like 4 words I want to hear from you right now. Okay, all right, whatever. Well, this has been a blast. We talked about doing a Ted Lasso episode for a long time. I'm so happy it finally got done. Been thinking about Shane, you are always right. Oh, it's 5 words. It's not even 4 words. I can't count.
That's what they're going. Shane was right. Shane is always right.
Shane is always right. That's what I meant. Yeah, Shane.
But we know that that's not true.
It is true statistically.
Thank you.
I mean,
not from a certain point of view at all. So,
well, anyway, it's been so great talking to you guys and not being Ted Lasso supportive of me.
That's not why you come around us. Come on.
Not at all. But I do appreciate you guys' time, everybody's time that was on this episode. It was awesome. Man, Jason, we have to announce the next episode. and we haven't even solidified it yet, but the ball is in your court where you had a concept, because our next episode, September's episode, is going to be the first Jason Talks with the new format monthly episode. And you had an idea. Are you still sticking with your same idea, or have you come up with something else?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Okay, all right. Well,
We'll revisit that at some point in time.
Word. Well, we'll figure out Jason Talks episode. That will be September's episode. Annette, thank you for your time tonight. Everybody else who's on the episode, thank you for your time. And we will talk to you guys next month.
Bye.